All right, everyone, buckle up, because today we're tackling a phrase that might sound a little, well, intense. Taking up your cross.
Intense. Yeah, I can see that. But trust me, it's way more relatable than you might think. We're not talking about, like, actual crosses here.
Definitely not. We're diving into what this idea means in the context of modern life, the challenges and sacrifices we face just by living in a world where, honestly, beliefs are constantly being, tested and
Right,
challenged.
exactly. And to unpack all of that, we're going deep on an excerpt from a three-part series called Take Up Your Cross and Follow Me. But don't worry, you don't need to have read the whole series or anything. We're focusing on part two, which really gets into how this ancient idea translates to our world today.
And get this, they don't shy away from the heavy stuff. I mean, we're talking about crucifixion, which, let's be real, is a pretty brutal way to go.
Brutal is an understatement. But see, that's the point, isn't it? The source isn't just some dry history lesson. It's about connecting that very visceral, very real brutality to the pressures we feel today, even if they look totally different on the surface.
So good. Because think about it, crucifixion wasn't just about death, right? It was about making an example out of someone, public humiliation, like a whole spectacle designed to spread fear. And honestly, in a world obsessed with social media, that whole public spectacle thing feels way too familiar.
It's everywhere you look. You know, that fear of being canceled, of your reputation being destroyed just because you express your beliefs, that's a modern form of pressure that I think directly echoes what the source is talking about with crucifixion.
100%. And the source actually comes right out and says it. This is about dying for your beliefs. And then they ask this really thought-provoking question. What does it actually mean to sacrifice something when, the stakes might not be life or death like they were back then? The fear might feel just as real, just as intense, but the consequences aren't always so dramatic, at least not in the immediate sense.
And that, I think, is where this excerpt really shines, because it's not about fear-mongering.
Yeah.
It's not about making you feel afraid to have an opinion. It's actually about courage, about finding the strength to stand up for what you believe in, even when it's hard.
Okay, so you're going to think I'm jumping ahead here, but when I first saw that the source had a section called Practical Steps for Daily Victorious Living, I have to admit, I rolled my eyes a little. I was like, here we go, another generic self-help list. But honestly, I was so wrong. There's some really powerful stuff in there.
You hit the nail on the head. It's not a checklist. It's about understanding how those virtues actually play out in your life, the nitty-gritty.
Yes, it's one thing to know the definition of sacrifice, but it's a whole other thing to actually live it out when you're faced with a tough decision. Like, the source uses this example of someone hurting you, right? And they say that in that situation, sacrificing might look like choosing to forgive that person. And yeah, that's not always easy. Yeah. Your gut reaction a lot of times is going to be to hold on to that anger. It's about making the conscious choice to let go, even though it's hard, even though you feel like that hurt is holding you back in some way.
And you know what makes that example even more powerful? The source connects it right back to Jesus. They remind us that he forgave his enemies, and he did it while he was literally being crucified. Now, obviously, most of us will never have to go through anything even remotely close to that, but just the concept that forgiveness is possible, even in the midst of incredible pain and suffering, that's huge.
Totally. And then they move on to step 2, which is all about courage. But again, it's not just this vague idea of being brave. It's about those everyday moments when you're faced with the choice, speak up or stay silent.
Like when you see something wrong happening and you know you should say something, but it'd be so much easier to just keep scrolling.
Yes. Or those times on social media where you see a comment, or maybe there's a whole trend going around that just rubs you the wrong way. And, in your heart that it's wrong. But saying something, well, it can feel risky. This step is about recognizing that silence can be a form of complicity. It's about standing by your convictions even when, and I think this is key, even when it feels uncomfortable.
It's so easy to get caught up in that cycle of scrolling and just let things wash over you. But this source, it challenges us to be more active, more discerning about what we're willing to tolerate. And I think that's a really relevant message for anyone who spends time online, which, let's be real, is pretty much all of us.
For real. And then the third step, it brings us back to that idea of Jesus's unwavering commitment to his mission, even when everyone and everything seem to be against him. And the source asks us to think about what we're that dedicated to. What are those things in our own lives that we're willing to fight for, to sacrifice for, even when it's hard, even when we face opposition? It's about zeroing in on your values, and then, this is the important part, actually living them out, even and sometimes especially when things get tough.
It's about putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak. Anyone can say they believe in something, but are you actually willing to back that up with your actions? And are you willing to stand by your convictions even when it costs you something? That's what this step really gets at.
You know, reading this excerpt, it really got me thinking about the internal crosses we carry too. Like, it's one thing to talk about external challenges, but what about the doubts, the fears, the stuff we wrestle with inside our own heads? Those can feel like pretty heavy burdens too. And what I appreciate about this source is that it doesn't shy away from that. It reminds us that even in those internal struggles, we can find strength. We can find inspiration to keep going. We don't have to face those battles alone.
That's such a good point. And it's something that the source itself doesn't explicitly dive into. It focuses mainly on those external challenges, but it opens the door for us to ask ourselves, what are the crosses that I'm carrying? What are those internal struggles that I need to face? And that, my friend, is a question worth exploring.
So there you have it, our deep dive into the modern meaning of taking up your cross. We've covered a lot of ground, from the historical context of crucifixion to the pressures of today's world, and even some practical ways we can live out those ideas of courage, commitment, and sacrifice in our everyday lives.
It's a good reminder that living out your faith, or even just staying true to your values, isn't always about these big, dramatic gestures.
Yeah.
It's often about those quieter, everyday moments, the choices we make when no one else is watching. Those little sacrifices, they add up over time.
And as we navigate those choices, the ups and downs of trying to live a good life, it's important to remember that we're not alone in this. We have each other. We have this incredible history and tradition to draw on, and we have a source of strength that's always there for us, no matter what challenges we might be facing. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.